The 1950 edition of the Saturday Evening Post labeled them America's bloodiest gang. They went to war against the KKK as well as other gangsters. They controlled crime in southern Illinois for the better part of 2 decades. Yet today, few have heard of the notorious Shelton Gang. So join us as we take a look at southern Illinois' infamous Shelton Gang. In the United States, the passage of the Volstead Act in 1919 ushered in the era known as Prohibition, with the sale, transportation, and possession of alcoholic beverages being made illegal. However, Prohibition also happened to coincide with the Roaring '20s, and Americans wanted to drink. Luckily for those thirsty Americans, there was no shortage of people willing to thumb their nose at the law and supply the demand for booze. Many of the founders of the American Mafia got their start as bootleggers. The profit margins were enormous, and they never lacked for customers. While some of these early bootleggers, like Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Vito Genovese, and Al Capone, later became notorious figures in the American underworld, a great many more operated in relative obscurity. One such group was the Shelton Gang, based in southern Illinois. The gang, which began as a crew of juvenile delinquents led by brothers Carl, Earl, and Bernie Shelton, had expanded to a gang of more than 50 strong by the start of Prohibition. The brothers had relocated from the family farm in Wayne County, Illinois, to East St. Louis, Illinois, a much more active and larger city. As their foothold in the city's bootlegging business continued to expand, the gang's numbers continued to grow. The Shelton Gang's influence expanded into other parts of southern Illinois, making them a dominant force in the region. During the early 1920s, the Shelton Gang formed an alliance with a local bootlegger and gangster named Charlie 𝖕rger. At one point, 𝖕rger even helped the Sheltons in their battle with the Ku Klux Klan. At the time, the Klan had a presence in Illinois, and they were fervently anti-bootlegger. After several skirmishes with casualties on both sides and little support from the local community, the Klan finally relented. The Sheltons then returned to business as usual. However, not too long after their war with the Klan ended, Charlie 𝖕rger and the Sheltons had a falling out. Sources are conflicted on what led to the feud. Some claim that it started over a woman. Others say that 𝖕rger turned on the Sheltons, while yet others claim the Sheltons went against 𝖕rger. Regardless of how the feud began, the results were costly for both sides. The protracted war between 𝖕rger and the Sheltons included houses being firebombed, family members shot, and so many bombings and shootings that both sides created homemade armored cars. The Sheltons' war with Charlie 𝖕rger finally ended when 𝖕rger informed the police about the Shelton brothers' involvement in a previously unsolved mail car robbery. Thanks to 𝖕rger's informing, that the Sheltons were handed a sentence of 25 years in prison. Charlie 𝖕rger would end up being convicted in a murder-for-hire plot and was executed in 1928. After an early release, the Shelton brothers were out of prison by the early 1930s and had relocated to Peoria, Illinois. The Sheltons first worked for Peoria gambling kingpin Clyde Garrison. After a kidnapping attempt had left his wife killed, Garrison hired the Sheltons for added protection. Eventually, the Shelton Gang wanted a bigger slice of the pie and looked into running their own gambling and prostitution rackets. Unlike Charlie 𝖕rger, Garrison did not have the desire to go to war with the Shelton Gang and instead left Peoria. With the local vice rackets now squarely in the hands of the Shelton Gang, the brothers made the necessary bribes and political connections to operate freely. By the early 1940s, the effects of the Depression had begun to wane. and many of Peoria's citizens had some extra money in their pockets and enjoyed gambling at one of the Shelton brothers' establishments after work. The gang was a strong presence in the area, as one local recalled, "You couldn't spit in Peoria without the Sheltons' permission." The Sheltons also expanded into other areas in southern Illinois. Because Peoria was a wide-open city, it meant that it was not controlled by any of the national mafia families, despite its close proximity to Chicago. The Sheltons enjoyed their reign in Peoria for more than a decade, thanks to their good relationship with longtime Peoria Mayor E.N. Woodruff. Woodruff's blessing allowed the gang to operate with impunity. But by the mid-1940s, something changed. There was an attitude shift among the citizens of Peoria. They had grown tired of their city's reputation as a hotbed of sleaze and vice. In a shocking upset, Mayor Woodruff lost his bid for re-election, ushering in a reform candidate. With their political protection now gone, the Sheltons were informed in no uncertain terms that they were no longer welcome in Peoria. The gang heeded the warning and left the city. They set up their operations outside the city limits within Peoria County, and thus ended the tale of the Shelton Gang, one of the lesser-known Prohibition-era gangs who rebranded themselves into gambling kingpins well into the 1940s. The gang ultimately succumbed to the reckless violence it so readily dished out, and though their run was lengthy and profitable, the Shelton Gang today remains a footnote in history, and yet another tale from the underworld.
Thanks for listening to Tales from the Underworld. If you're fascinated by the stories we uncover, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. For even more exclusive content, head over to our website at talesfromtheunderworld.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get insider access to deeper case details, early updates on new episodes, and more true crime content sent straight to your inbox. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay out of the shadows.